Hey, guys. This is Daniela Marie, aka the New Nigerian. And I want to welcome you guys to my podcast, which we have very strategically named All the Wahala. And so we're going to go ahead and kick things off. And to get started, I want to tell you guys a little bit about myself, just so you kind of know who you're talking to these upcoming series and episodes. So, I am originally from Youngstown, Ohio. Of course, that is in the US, for those of you who don't know. I grew up, I attended Catholic school. I ended up graduating, and then I then went to undergrad, where I graduated from Spelman College in Atlanta, which is a historically Black college or university, the number one HBCU in the U.S. And I majored in dual degree engineering, where I have a degree in industrial engineering and economics. Let's see. I then went on to law school. I attended Howard University School of Law, where I graduated. And after I graduated from Howard, I then went off to Georgia State, where I have an LLM in health law. Right. So I just wanted to go ahead and set this series off right so that you don't get the wrong idea. This was not someone who couldn't hack it in America. This was not someone who was doing bad in America at all. My life was completely lit. I lived to the best of every period of my life. I absolutely love college. I hated law school, but who didn't? And I mean, at the point at which I found myself ready to venture into Africa, honestly, I was doing well in my career for my age. I mean, I had a great house. I lived alone. Like I was, I had even gotten myself freedom. So not just money had I amassed, but I had amassed freedom of my time. So honestly, you guys, I don't want to hear any comments going forward like this is some girl who couldn't hack it in America. I did, and I loved it, and I love my life. I will say that over all 30 plus years that I had lived in America, I had experienced an enormous amount of racism. And I don't always think that the things that happened to me were a direct product of race, but I will say that they were either direct or indirect, because I think a large amount of the things that I had experienced in my childhood had a lot to do with poverty. And I think that poverty is not just a white or Black thing, but I do think that understanding race in America, you'll kind of arrive at the same conclusion that I did, that poverty for Black Americans isn't something that's a choice or a lack of their work ethic. It is very strategically done. And so, in saying all of that, I had been privileged enough to have like classmates who had traveled all over the world, who were studying abroad. So in college, my experiences, they were just largely expanded. Like, so at that point in time, I grew an affinity for Africa. I was always like, if I ever traveled abroad, I want to go to Africa. And so it began in law school, where I studied abroad in South Africa, Cape Town to be exact. And then after a while, when I was at Georgia State, one of my best friends, she was Ghanaian, and she and I really hit it off. And over the next few years, our families got closer, we grew closer, and I decided to take a trip to Ghana. And once I traveled into Ghana, it had really kind of busted my interest wide open. And so one trip to Ghana became multiple trips a year, spending months in Africa. It was just unbelievable. I absolutely love Ghana. So shout out to all my Ghana fam. I know it's been a minute, you guys, but don't worry, I'm coming. So, with that being said, there was just kind of one thing missing and why I hadn't chosen to move to Ghana. And I really just love the luxury of my life that I have in America. And I wasn't really ready to have such a drastic change. So, for those of you who are Americans, I will definitely say that if you're only looking to kind of get a touch of Africa, but still kind of American life, South Africa is definitely the best first step. But if you want to kind of get a feel for Africa, then I think that Ghana is a wonderful tourist location for you to visit as your first one. But I will tell you that a friend of mine's on one of my last trips to Ghana was just like, I really think that you should judge Lagos for itself. And, I know Nigerians get a bad rep, but I really think if you come and you don't like it, I'll never talk to you about it again. But just come and check it out. And so I will tell whoever who asks me that I feel like I let God illuminate the next step. So all I do is plan for the very next step that I take, and then I live it fully, and I let God illuminate what steps comes next. And that's just a figment of how I learned to live my life, because I kind of thrashed through everything I set as goals, and I was like, you know what? God is so amazing to me that I really should just go where he takes me. So on a last minute trip to Ghana, I decided to set aside a week to go visit Lagos. That week in Lagos was incredibly amazing. I don't know how many of you have heard the story, but definitely venture over to my YouTube channel. To those of you who have not heard the story, it's pretty incredible. So, I'll leave that over there. So go check out the YouTube channel. It's at The New Nigerian, the with two E's, and New Nigerian spelled exactly as it spells. So getting on with the story. So that one week in Nigeria was so amazing, I decided to move. And I did so in January of 2022. And I'll say that for everyone who encounters me, everyone in Africa, they're always so quick to talk about our African ancestry and this, that, and the third. I was one Black American who was incredibly interested in that. Like, I felt like I watched every other group of people share this kind of camaraderie with each other, and I just felt like Black Americans were sorely lacking, whether that was just celebration of what it is that we have or our connection to Africa. Like, I just didn't feel it. I was like one of these kind of lonesome people where I didn't feel like I completely fit into the American category, but I knew nothing about the African category. And so I was just like, we're just going to give it up to God and see what happens. So January 2022, I prepare for my move to Nigeria. And I hadn't had a lot of time to kind of sit with this idea. I think the trip was in like October. So then we had kind of like November, December, and January, and then I was off. So I had shipped my car. I planned for my dog to travel. I'll also talk more about what it was to get my dog to travel and what it was like for her, but I won't go into that on this. And so we touched down, we stayed in Airbnbs, and we officially began our house hunt. And so I will tell you that the Lagos house hunting is unlike anything that you would have ever experienced. So definitely check out my YouTube for that as well. Next, once we were settled, I'll say that God really was looking out for me because he gave me the absolute best landlady that I could have ever gotten. She made my transition so unbelievably seamless that I honestly couldn't thank her enough. In a place where I knew next to no one. I didn't even know 5 people when I got there. Some of which I had even only known through Zoom due to shared work experiences during the pandemic. But I literally knew like 3 people, I think, when I got there. And that began my life in Lagos. And I'll say that all of the things that I kind of thought when I first moved there was that I would be leaving behind racism. That was the first. I also thought that I would be gaining an affinity for all things Black. I thought that I was moving to a preferential dating area. And for somebody who was in my 30s, early 30s, I thought that that was like the perfect move at the perfect time. I thought I was going to ideal weather. And I just kind of expected like this kind of welcome home vibe, because I won't say that Ghana was a complete welcome home vibe, but I definitely felt very at peace and very kind of amongst kin people. And so I got to Lagos, and when I tell you that landlady was amazing, and I would arguably say everything that happened next was just a ride that I could not have imagined. And so I loved my house. I really kind of set it up like a dream, which again, if you want to see what my house looks like, I also did kind of like a house tour on my YouTube channel. So again, check that out. And I'll say that every aspect of furnishing the house gave me a dose of what Nigeria was really like. When I tell you, every person who I had encountered set out to scam me. Like there wasn't one area where I didn't feel like it was a scam. So even just the purchasing of like products for the kitchen, whether it be pots and pans or storage stuff like Tupperware and things like that. I mean, I would go to the store, and if you shop in the local stores, like the reputable ones, how we would if we were in America, they tax you like crazy. Local people know this. I didn't know this when I first got there. Definitely, you want to buy your stuff at the markets. So, let that be the first piece of advice that I give. If you want to get settled in, shop at the markets. Now, market things, beware, because this is something that I also didn't know, but it rung true then. It still rings true today. If you have an accent that sounds like mine's, and by like mine's, I just mean that American English. Actually, I think that this occurs to anybody who has any outside accent of an African one. They will try you. So I say that to say their markets are 100% kind of haggle. And so as soon as they hear your accent, as soon as they hear your voice, trust me, the price they told you, way higher than what the real price of it is. So if you want to go to those markets, make sure you have a local person there and a local person who's kind of aware of how they play, because I, for one, started moving through once I hired my PA. I mean, honestly, my PA was a game changer for me. She went everywhere with me. She negotiated everything in, like before I could even, sometimes we even kept myself outside of the room. So not just being silent, but sometimes I physically wasn't even there just so that, she could kind of get a fair price. And there are some times where she didn't really have that luxury, and I just went ahead and made it harder for her because there were certain things that I was interested in. So for instance, like when we go to the market and we shop for goat meat, like it was just something that I wanted to experience for myself. So she just had a hard time. And in the market, they are 100% telling you a higher price. If you're going to travel to the markets, definitely have somebody who's local, who understands what's happening, who can understand their languages, which I'll also say this is something that I think is commonly misunderstood or just simply unknown. There are many different languages that are spoken in Nigeria. So thinking that everybody is speaking the same language, it's not the case. So you'll probably want to do your research and even ask more questions. I guess the first question being tribes. So there are a couple of major tribes, which I think many people know about, which are Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa. But there are over 450 tribes, if I'm not mistaken. I have a lot of friends who are Edo. I just honestly think that you need to ask where they're from, and then if they have understood what's being spoken, or just simply asking which all languages they speak. But I say that to say not everybody understands everything, but definitely markets are a haggle place, and you want to have somebody local, because if your accent is spoken, heard, understood, or just even a glimpse of it gets out, they are going to whack you. That's just the culture that's on the ground there. So I made a whole lot of mistakes where I was spending a whole lot of money, and I was getting pissed off because these things are like times five of how much it would have cost me in America. So sticker shock was definitely something that I wasn't expecting, because everybody's always talking about how much our currency is valued there. But I will say that if you're thinking about traveling to Africa because you believe your money is going to be worth so much more there, think again, because usually everything that you're going to want to buy, the price is either more than what you paid in America because they have import taxes and duties and stuff like that, or they are just going to whack you for your accent, or the price is even normalized. And by normalized, I mean, like, let's say if $1 is 10 of their currency, and you would typically buy something for like $2 in America, then you'd find it for 20 of their currency. So like you're still spending the same $2, but many instances it's not even the same $2. You're probably spending more. So that was the next thing that kind of really kind of surprised me. Another thing that I think a lot of people would need to know when they're first traveling is how things are on the ground managed, because I had to pay my first year's rent up front. So, like in America, we paid our rent month by month. So, every month we have new rents, we have new utility bills. I mean, everything is kind of segmented down. But when I moved to Nigeria, I had to pay 12 months of rent up front. In addition to the 12 months of rent, they have what they call a service charge. The service charge was a little bit difficult for somebody like me to follow, because I was really kind of looking for structured numbers. But most often, nobody could tell me the cost of diesel. And they were all saying that it will fluctuate. And I really wanted to take kind of ambiguity out of their hands, because I was like, if you tell me that it could be anything, honestly, it could be anything. It could be $1,000,000. It could be $10,000. It could be $100. Like, I have no idea what to expect. And I just wasn't really expecting sanity after kind of what I was experiencing on the ground. So I found someone where, I mean, I think I paid a little bit more, but for myself, it was ideal because it was like a fixed number. So definitely that's a whole lot of money when you talk about paying 12 months of rent before you even move in. But again, I ended up having a great experience. So that's not something that I think should shy you away. But I also think that you should concern yourself with safety. So one thing that I hear so much from my Nigerian friends, they are always talking about how unsafe America is, which it's super crazy to me, because to consistently talk about how unsafe America is, and they point to gun shooting a lot. Like, they are talking about the mass shootings that we kind of see around town. They talk about gun violence, whether it's gang violence or just, incidences that occur with guns and stuff. And I'm like, it's so crazy to me, because the way Nigerians want to paint America as unsafe, my God, Nigeria is not safe. Like, if you do not quit playing yourself, Nigeria is far from safe. Now, I don't want to get into a battle of comparing like whose safety or lack of safety is better or worse. That's not my intention. What I am trying to do is that Americans don't shy away from it. Like, yes, there's mass shootings, there are gun issues, but gun issues come with gun ownership. Like, it's not like you can ever put something out there and not expect the good to come with the bad. So there are many people who use guns properly, myself included. I have a license to carry my guns. I go to the gun ranges for practice. Like I'm a responsible gun owner, and there are many of those in America, and I will stand behind the fact that guns are needed. Now, with guns being out there, of course, they are going to occasionally get into the wrong hands. I think that that's where government and law officials have to kind of balance, what they can do to minimize those occurrences. But 100%, if you put something out there, you have to take the good with the bad. So I say that to say, in America, people have guns. I think you should have a gun to defend yourself as well. Now, in Nigeria, next to no one outside of police officers carry guns in the military and stuff. And honestly, I think the society is worse for it. Like all of my friends who live on the mainland, which to those of you who don't know, Lagos has a mainland and it has an island. So I live on the island. You fly into the mainland, you cross over the bridge to get to the island. So I say all of this to say all of my friends who live on the mainland have told me stories about them getting robbed. And honestly, like it breaks my heart to see them get robbed because, of course, when they get robbed, robbers always take high value things. And because of the low wages, it makes it a very hard or difficult time to earn those things back. Because, like, let's say, for instance, if you are making 100,000 naira a month. So I think at this very moment, 100,000 naira is maybe less or close to $100. So assuming somebody stole someone's iPhone, like it might take that person a year plus to be able to replace that item. So in a moment's notice, your years hard work or, gift or whatever is stolen, and now you're left back to whatever, you can afford in the immediate instance. So I just think that the crime that occurs when it's in Lagos is far more devastating and it's far more pervasive. Like, it's unbelievable to me that people care about mass shootings when the dangers, and I'm just going to, list them out. This is not saying that there are not other dangers in America other than guns, but I'm just going to point out just some of the things that I've heard since living in Lagos. So the first would be that I see people who get robbed. I see people who get raped. And I say the rape thing because it even occurs within marriages. Like, it's unbelievable how women are unprotected. Like, it's just crazy to me. And when I say unprotected, I'll also put that I'm including in this category of unprotection if you use money as a tool of control, because I think that's a lot of the reasons that I think women are really kind of held in unfortunate positions in Lagos is their lack of money and a man's power of money over them. And so I'll say that I'm including that in there. But I've also heard of instances of kidnapping on public buses and people being sacrificed for rituals. It's unbelievable. Like, you're definitely not without harm in Nigeria, and it's massive. Like, people get kidnapped. I just heard something in the news about kidnappers kind of holding people both in Abuja and in Lagos. Like, it's really crazy. So the idea that you would point to America's instability and gun violence as a reason that it makes America less ideal than anywhere else is crazy to me, because in all my 30 plus years in America, I've never had an instance of a gun issue in my life. But in Lagos, definitely mad suspect instances. And so to the point where when I'm in Lagos, I even move with security most times. So I'll say that was the next thing that I think really kind of stood out. So I think that if you're an American or a foreigner who wants to visit, definitely be mindful of the area that you're in and what that kind of looks like. And I would say question everything because I'm a lawyer. So by nature, that's what I do. But I also think that that really worked to my advantage. Um, Let's see. So when I say question everything, I mean, look at how the security moves. Does it actually make sense? Are they really secure? And I'll even add that this is something that I think everybody should be mindful of. In Nigeria, almost anybody moves for the money. And so I'll give you like a very lighthearted example, but I say this to say don't just take it in the lighthearted aspect, take it for real and be mindful of that and kind of build this into your plans. So I was dating someone and I mean, we're close. It wasn't like I was keeping any secrets or anything. But after a while, like he just knew things that he should not have known. And so let's say, okay, where I live, there's main gate security and then there's like security specifically at my compound. So we have no issues with main gate security. They're tight. So my compound security is what I'm calling into question. And it's not like they jeopardized my safety at all, but I was like, there was one time I was like fighting with my boyfriend and I wanted to like make him think that I had gone out at night when I actually had not gone out that night. So I'm talking to him and we're texting and I'm like kind of like alluding to having gone out and, you know, wanting his mind to wonder like, what did she do? And he came back and told me like, I know you stayed home last night. The only way he could have known that is if my security told his ass. And that's so crazy to me because I didn't even think that he could be paying my security to like tell him anything. So thank goodness I'm just a decent person. So I wasn't moving in a way that could get me into any trouble or anything. But I say that to say, just remember that anybody moves for money. So, I mean, depending on who you're dealing with, if that person has money, he can almost bribe just about anybody. So be mindful of that and you should move accordingly. So next thing I'd say is just kind of how difficult it was for me to move around on the ground. Like I couldn't just come there and get banking accounts and, you know, transfer money. And because I earn in a different currency, because my money comes in America, I had to think of ways to move the money and also move it quickly. And also, in addition to moving it quickly, making sure that it was affordable. I'll go ahead and share, if you check out my social media pages, I'll share some of the ways in which I do this to make it kind of inexpensive and affordable and, you know, just fast. So I'll share that in another video. But back to the story. So I wasn't able to do that. So it was really difficult for me to just kind of move and shop. Also, with kind of getting around without a vehicle at first. Thankfully, my neighbor shared her driver, but I mean, I wouldn't take her driver everywhere. So let's say if I wanted to go out at night, I found that Bolt and Uber, I mean, everybody kind of understands that Uber is going off of who's around you. And so because I think where I lived, everybody pretty much had cars. It wasn't like Uber drivers just kind of frequented, especially for how secure the area was. So I could almost never find an Uber at night. So that was also a problem for me. So I ended up having to buy a car. I'll do a video one day on my social media and share just how much it costs me. And I don't want anybody to get sticker shocked. You do not need nearly as much as I used. I really kind of overdid it from a protection and safety standpoint, but I'll share with you the numbers so you can kind of have an idea. Okay, so moving on. Other things that I was really interested in. So I said that I was really interested in dating. And I know that this is something that I intend to get into in a later video, so I won't do it here. But I just really kind of thought the Nigerian man mindset was superior. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, these brothers, they know they want to be married, so you don't have to convince them to marry. Because in America, I largely feel like for Black American men, you kind of have to really convince them of the benefits of marriage, which is crazy because I don't think you have to do that with any other group of men. They kind of know what comes along with it. But for Black men in America, I mean, you really got to kind of convince them. And that convincing can be quite hard depending on how good they made their life look independently. So I was thinking that I was finding men who didn't have to be convinced to be married, who valued family, who really kind of took the role of leadership and head of household seriously. So I was just thinking that for an alpha woman, all of these kind of characteristics and traits were so ideal. And when I got there, I mean, God really knows what he's doing, because my personality is you have to slam a door shut in my face in order to get me to change directions, because I'm so used to kind of just knocking down hurdles that if I'm going in the wrong direction or the direction I shouldn't be traveling, I mean, you really got to hit me hard. So I say that to say, definitely. Everything I thought about Nigerian men, there's a underlying thing about it. And so those characteristic traits might be true, but they didn't lead to the same conclusion that I had drawn. Like that kind of alpha or head of household kind of mentality and kind of being like the breadwinner. And I mean, it really does afford them a whole lot of luxury that they would not have with American women. And I say this to say there will be so many other debates that I will be interested in having when it comes to the Black American woman mindset and all of the negative and positive, I guess, stereotypes that come with being a Black American woman. But 100% Nigerian men enjoy the ability to cheat without question. Like many of them even create whole other families. Like they can have another wife, multiple wives. They can have children, just kind of create the lives they want with whomever they so choose. And I know that there are some restrictions that are placed on like the numbers due to like religion or culture or whatever. But just in general, the idea of more than one is just something that I think most of the men that I encountered just kind of enjoyed. And that's not something that would necessarily fly in America. I also think that the kind of idea behind like family, it also looks different, because I was kind of thinking that these are really present parents, and many times they're really kind of hands off. Just even in my experiences with my friends and hearing about their own upbringings, it seemed like the dad really wasn't really like present. Like he may have physically been there, but he's kind of enthralled in work and business and the provision aspects. So he didn't really get into the parenting or rearing or raising aspects of things. So that even looked different for me. So just in general, the dating was a complete eye opener. Some other things that I think are good to be mindful of things that I didn't know that would be good for Black Americans to know when they travel. So the first thing is I assumed that my card, being Visa, MasterCard, or Amex, would work wherever those things are accepted. In Nigeria, that was not the case. So many of the businesses only took local cards. And so you probably want to ask before you sit and wine and dine if they accept foreign cards, if that's your method of payment for the day. I would also not look for things like Tap and Pay, Apple Pay, they're definitely just not that technologically advanced. So I would not expect those things. What else do I think was important? I mean, honest to God, it honestly is something that I had been wanting to do for a while. And the whole point of me kind of wanting to do this intro podcast video is that I wanted to document my life in Nigeria, because I think that Black Americans need Africans, and I think that Africans need Black Americans. Like, I honestly think that there's no real progress that can be seen in either of the two's conditions without the other. Because for Black Americans, America is just not structurally built for us to flourish. Like, there are people who definitely get to that step, but I mean, it's the things that you have to overcome in America are quite intense, and it's just it shouldn't be this difficult. And so I say this to say that Africa has structure, they have resources, they have community. Like there's just so much. And I think that their conditions could also change if you start including like tourism. Like there are many parts where the roads are quite bad. But if they had more dollars kind of flowing in from tourism, or even if it was just, dating and, the sharing of resources amongst each other, like their conditions on the ground could improve, and it would drastically improve the lives of both sides. So I say this to say, the journey that I am embarking on as the new Nigerian is to document my life there so that other Black Americans can really get an insight into what it's like to be a foreigner in Africa and get to see Africa through my eyes. And I also want to encourage the dialogue for Nigerians to talk back, because I think that there are many things that Nigerians and Africans alike see from Black Americans that leads them to certain conclusions that are grossly inaccurate. For instance, I've heard that, Black Americans are poor simply because they don't work hard. There could not be a bigger lie in American history than that. The thing that I kind of touched on about the gun violence, like if you don't understand some of these things at their core, then you'll be completely kind of in the wrong ballpark when it comes to conclusions and what you should and shouldn't be drawing from them. Also, when it comes to how much we're alike, I think that when I did not expect this, and, I'll share just some quick thoughts about it just so that we can kind of get to the parts that are funny. But there is something about African time. It's the latest thing you ever saw. I remember one day I was going on a boat ride, and while the person who had set the boat ride, she was like, okay, we're going to leave at 11 a.m. promptly. Don't be late, right? And in my little new naive self, I was like, oh my God. So I was like running out of the house. I think my GPS said that I would be there at like 11:03. So I was freaking out about being those 3 minutes late. And what I did not know is that Africans are so freaking tardy. Like, I want to say that the last person arrived at like 3 p.m., like 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. Like, we're still waiting on people at 3 o'clock. Like, this is so crazy. We didn't even get on the boat till like 3:30. I don't know. I was starving by the time, like, here I was running up out of the house and I didn't grab no food or nothing. And my God, like if I had known that we had until 3, the things I could have done with my day. But I say that to say, like in America, we call it CP time. So I know every American knows what CP time is. It stands for colored people time. But we are nowhere near as bad as African time. CP time means we'll be about 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes late, hour at best. But no, African time, hours, like it's unbelievable. So I also sit and talk with my friends about the pressures from my parents, about marriage, about, just being successful in the career path that I've taken. And it really mirrors a lot of the things that they say, including down to punishments and getting like whoopings or spankings. And I'm like, you honestly think that we don't get beat? Like, but from the narratives that have been pushed, it's just kind of like they think everybody in America is just over here calling Child Protective Services and the police come right over and do away with it. And I'm like, that is not at all what it looks like. And so I'm just going to lay this groundwork and say, I don't want either side to be offended. My thoughts are my thoughts. My journey is my journey. And my conclusions are my conclusions. I am not doing this to rag on any particular group. I intend to highlight both good and bad parts of both of these journeys because I thoroughly have enjoyed overall living in Africa, and to the point where I think I would always want to kind of go back and forth between the two. But 100%, I think that Nigerians are just not real about what Nigerians are really like and what their kind of, what I don't know, how they're perceived and where the truth in it lies, as opposed to what they're just kind of dismissing as rubbish. And the same, like Black Americans, I think we are all like very much aware of the negative aspects, but I think that there's so much that we could learn and improve just kind of looking at some things that are done in Africa. And so with that, I came up with the journey of the new Nigerian. And I really want you guys to follow my YouTube channel and also follow me on Instagram and TikTok so that you can take this journey with me, because I think that this is so important, and I think that this conversation deserves to be televised. And I'm just kind of looking forward to really just taking this journey with you guys and giving you a glimpse into what I see. And so I'll say that to kind of put out there that if this is a I'm really sorry. I'm open to all suggestions. And so if there's somewhere that you think that would be great for me to see, if there's a conversation that you think my perspective would be useful on, I mean, I really want to kind of get in there and really get to some of the tough things. Like, you're going to laugh, but you're also going to find some things where I might make you want to drag me, as they say. And I would suggest that you maybe not do that, but to encourage you to kind of open your hearts, your ears, your eyes, and engage in this journey with me so that we can do the work of kind of uniting the two together. And so with that being said, I'll go ahead and bring this first episode to a close. But I want to tell you guys again, don't forget to follow on my Instagram and on my TikTok. Both are at The New Nigerian, and the is spelled THEE. Also, go to the YouTube channel, which is also at The New Nigerian, and subscribe. Talk to me in the comments, because I really do read all of the comments, and I will take all conversations, suggestions, questions, concerns, comments, anything that you'll give. I'll be, grateful to kind of use it and tailor this journey to something that can be productive for both sides. And so with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off and say good night. And I'm hoping that you have really gotten out of this what I'm hoping to put out there. But I hope that this gets you as curious for the journey as I am. And so I'm looking forward to you tagging along. So I will see you guys, or you'll hear from me very soon. Bye, guys.